Hello and welcome to this next tutorial in Pygame. So today we're going to do some movement. We're basically going to get our rectangle under keyboard control. So first thing we're going to have to do is set up some variables to control where the rectangle appears on the screen initially, and we're going to use that to update it as we press a key. So first off, very straightforward, just under where you defined the colours, we're going to give the object, the rectangle in this case, an X and a Y coordinate. So this will be where we'll first draw it to the screen. So it's its start position, if you like. Next thing we're going to do is define the dimensions. So the height and the width of the rectangle. So rather than having a static value, now we'll have a variable. And if we want to change the height or the width of the rectangle at any point, we can just change it up here in the code. And next we're going to give a value for velocity because we want to move it and we want to increase this value as the key is pressed. So we're just going to set that to 10 initially, and I've just sorted velocity down to vel just for ease. So the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to go down to our game loop and we're going to start to put in our game logic. So what we want to do is first work out if a key is pressed. So we're going to set up a variable which will store whether or not a key has been pressed. So we're going to do this inside the while loop but outside of the for loop. So we're going to put it in just here. So to make sure you've got it in the right place, if you remember in the last tutorial I showed you could use the arrow keys, and K for keys should start off in exactly the same position as the for. So it should not be inside the for loop, it should be inside the while loop. Okay? So the K should start in exactly the same place as the for. So this means we've now got a variable set up to store, if a key has been pressed or not. So now we can start with the cool stuff. We can start checking if a key has been pressed, and if it has, we can change the position of our rectangle. So the first thing we're going to do is check that if the left key has been pressed. So it's just if keys, so if a key has been pressed, and if it's the left key, then we can minus off the value of velocity, which is 10, off the value of x, which is the x position. So that will take it to the left. Okay. We're now going to do almost identical thing for the right key, but instead of taking a value off it, we're going to add to it. So we're going to say, if the right key has been pressed, we're going to add to the x value. And again, just be careful with your indentation here, because this will be where you go wrong 9 times out of 10. So the I is going to be in line with the K, and the K is in line with the F, and the same here exactly. The I is perfectly in line, so that's a straight line all the way up. And now we're just checking if it's the right key, add to the x value. So that will take it over to the right. Next, we want to be able to do up and down. So we're going to change the y-axis now. So let's just get that done. So if the up arrow has been pressed, you can see here the key code for the up arrow. So these are just the arrows on your keyboard. If the up arrow has been pressed, we're going to minus off the y value, and that will send your little block down the screen, up the screen in this case. And finally, we want to see if the down arrow is pressed, and if it is, we want to be able to send it down the screen. So one final if statement, again making sure we get everything in line. So there we go. So if the down key is pressed, we're going to not decrement, we're going to add to the, we're going to increment the x coordinates. There we go. So increment the x coordinate. So we're going to add to the y coordinate. Get it right? There we go. And again there, the y coordinate. So this is our basic code now for sending the player to the left, sending him to the right, and again that should have been increment. There we go. So we're going to increment the x coordinate. So add to it. Here we're going to minus off the y coordinate to send it up the screen, so that's decrement. And again, if we want to send it down the screen, we're going to have to add to the y value, because in Pygame 0, 0 is here to the top left. So if you have 10, it's just going to be off the top of the screen, and 10 in x, it's going to come in a bit. So that's why you have to add to the y to send it down the screen. Okay, so we're nearly there, we're nearly ready to go. The only thing we've got to do now is change these values in here, because at the moment we've set them to a static value, but what we actually want to do is change them every time a key is pressed. So what we need to do is change these to the variables we had earlier. So we want x, we want y, and we want width and height. And that will mean we can change it as we wish. So we got width, and then finally height. There we go. So now if we run this, we should see that we can now move our little block around the screen. So we've changed the size of the block. This was the platform we had earlier. We've just made it smaller, and you can see here we've made it 20 by 20, so it's quite a small block. And now if we press on the arrow keys, we can zoom around the screen, and you can even press like up and right at the same time, and or down and right at the same time. You can even move in diagonals now. So yeah, we can now move our block all the way around the screen. Now you will notice it disappears if it goes off the edge, so what we'll do in the next tutorial is do some collision detection to make sure, you know, we don't disappear off the edge for good and lose our little block. So there you have it. You now are able to move a rectangle around the screen. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.